would like to welcome everyone, both virtually and in person, to the Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory Board meeting, June 6, 2024. We're going to start our meeting off with the roll call. Lena Andrews. Dr. Jamil Bey is no longer with us. Is that correct for this group? I believe
yes,
he resigned.
He did resign.
Okay.
Hasn't been replaced yet.
Okay.
But
well, we'll hear more about that later. Tanika Harris.
Present.
Karen Garrett. Ellie Fisher.
Present.
Councilwoman Deb Gross. Mark, are you here for Jerome Jackson, or is Jerome with us as well?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Was Jerome confirmed? Because he was going to replace me, but I was getting the meeting notices, so I'm not sure if that's happened.
it did happen.
Okay. Well, then I'm not sure I need to vote on anything. Then I don't need to be here for. I'm not counting towards a quorum.
Deidre Washington. Marcus Reed. Dr. Paul Spradley. Alan Cisco.
Hi, guys. I'm here.
James Reed.
Here.
Adrian Wanaha, present. Kelly Ware. That's our roll.
That's it.
We're going to take a moment to review and accept the meeting minutes from May 2024. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at those? I see some nods. Great. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
This is Alan. I'll motion to accept the minutes.
Thank you, Alan. Do we have a second? Derek Tillman seconded for us, which is fantastic. We're super excited to have him with us today. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Any nays? Minutes are accepted. Thank you. We unfortunately do not have any public comment that is registered. Do we have anyone present in the meeting that wish to make public comment? Hearing none, we'll move to the next agenda item.
All right, that will be our announcements. As Eric mentioned a few minutes ago, we have had a lot of changes recently. So we do want to welcome Tanika Harris and Ellie Fisher to the advisory board. Welcome to you both. We're excited to have you. With that, we do want to formally say thank you and goodbye to Derek Tillman and Mark Masterson, who's here today, and also Tammy Thompson, who's not present. But we're just really grateful for the service of the three of you. Thank you. Especially, Derek and Mark, I know you've been on this advisory board for a very long time, since the early days of the advisory board. So I know I personally am really grateful to you both. So thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. So Adrian, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to say, but.
Well, I hope that we continue to see these faces, whether you're part of the advisory or not. We hope to see you in the community. Please come back and join us anytime, and feel free to sign up for that public comment, because we would love to hear what you're doing, what you're thinking about, and what you're valuing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And there are, as we saw when we did the roll, several other vacancies. We are working with the mayor's office to fill. So we should have, more new faces and more announcements to come in the next few months as we do that. But that's where we are in terms of advisory board membership. The City Controller's Office has done the first ever audit of the Housing Opportunity Fund. And we are going to discuss that today. But when Kiana Wassler, who's the Chief Housing Officer for the URA, is at another event, and she'll be coming.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay, great. Then I will turn it over to Kiana.
Thank you, Derek. Good afternoon to the Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory Board members. I'm Kiana Wassler, Chief Housing Officer at the URA. And we just wanted to let you all know that recently the City Controller's Office did an audit on the Housing Opportunity Fund. The City Controller's Office has the ability to audit the HOF via Pittsburgh's Home Rule Charter. They performed an audit of the 2022 HOF allocation, and that audit examined the policies, procedures, and programs of the Housing Opportunity Fund and analyzed its outputs. The scope and methodology that they used is as follows. The auditors met with URA staff, including our executive director and the director of housing of the URA at the time, and discussed the objectives of the audit, as well as our programs, policies, and procedures, and availability of data. Auditors also met with the Housing Authority, City of Pittsburgh Executive Director, Chief Operations Officer, and Government Relations Liaison to determine inter-authority communication about HOF programs available to landlords. Other methodologies include URA staff providing program, project, and URA-related data to the auditors for the 2022 year. The auditors also reviewed the URA's website for HOF program information, guidelines, and application processes. They looked at the 2017 to 2022 operating budgets, analyzing the transfer tax and realty transfer tax revenue for years 2017 through 2022, and HOF allocations from 2018 through 2022. The auditors also reviewed HUD, Housing Authority, and City of Pittsburgh websites, URA HOF financial statements for the year ending 2022, City of Pittsburgh Housing Needs Assessments, HOF 22 annual report, written meeting minutes from URA Board of Directors meetings, and then additionally, the URA staff provided 10% random sample of projects to verify records and to be used for audit purposes. That audit, from the audit, there was a total of 20 recommendations that covered an array of topics, including URA administration, the Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory Board, and the HOF fund programs. So we expect that audit to become public through the City Controller's Office in the coming months. And when it is made public, we will definitely send a link out to the Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory Board members, as well as potentially link it on the URA's website just for public knowledge. So just wanted to make the advisory board aware of the audit, and I will offer a moment for any questions that you may have.
Kiana, hey, this is Alan. I am sure there is a good reason for this, but is there a reason that we can't see the audit now or before it's public?
I have reached out to the controller's office to see, the URA would like to make one small edit to our response, but I believe they're going to do a combination document. And I'm unsure as to any additional edits they will make to their initial audit. So I would hate to release it as not the final version.
I get that. I'm just interested in the recommendations. That's the part I'm most interested in.
Okay. We potentially can list out just the recommendations for the advisory board and send that out to you. I will say that a lot of the recommendations, the majority of them, we have either already addressed or were in the process of addressing before the audit came out. So I feel really good about where we are with the audit and what our response is. But I can see if we can get the recommendations themselves circulated out.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Do you have any additional questions related to the HOF audit? Hearing none, we can move to the next agenda item.
So the next regularly scheduled HOF Advisory Board meeting, being the first Thursday of each month, would be on the 4th of July, which would be a little bit hard to do. So we're proposing the next week, June 11th instead.
July?
July, excuse me. Oh, I wrote you that, my mistake. July 11th. So the second Thursday, which there would usually be a regular URA board meeting, but it seems they're having either a closed session or they're postponing it altogether. So it means it's a good day for us to be able to do it if everyone is able to.
Do we have anyone with conflicts for July 11th as an adjustment for the July 4th holiday? We're good. Thanks, everyone.
Up next is the annual allocation plan. Just an update on this. As of today, we have completed, the community has completed 227 surveys and a little over a month of it being open. Still just under 2 months left. Again, it closes July 31st. We just sent out an email blast to a lot of people that were interested in housing through the URA. We encourage you all to take that email and send it to your own networks as well. The more eyes on this, the better. And in that effort, we have a few events coming up this month that are scheduled right now. There will probably be more, but for now, this weekend is the PHDC Mobile Mexican Consulate. We're very excited about this one. Last year, we got over 100 surveys done at this event alone and made for the majority of the Spanish surveys that we had completed. So that's a great opportunity. June 12th, the Troy Hill Citizens Inc., that's a CDC that I'll be doing a presentation at. June 13th is the first of our farmers market events where we'll be tabling. And then June 29th is obviously the City in the Streets in the Hill districts. That's also going to be very exciting and a great time to table and to get surveys completed.
So please join us at any of those events if you'd like to. You can reach out to Eric or myself. If you want to coordinate with us, or you can just come. You don't even have to tell us. We would love to have you there. Yeah, and please continue to share this with your networks so we can get as many responses as possible. So I think we're on track to do what we'd like to do this year. Eric done a great job so far. But yeah, we got to keep it going. So thank you to all for your help doing that. Yeah,
Dr. Spradley?
Go ahead, you can go first.
No.
Oh. PHCC, that's in Beachview. That's on the far end, right? Like down by is there a specific location for?
There is, it's the PHDC headquarters, and I believe that is in Beachview. Yeah. If you're interested, I can send you the exact location.
Tanika, did you have a
Yeah, so pick off of that, is there anything else in addition to, so these are great, so thank you for that. Are there things that you would, are the expectations from the advisory board members to create our own? Is that permissible for us to be able to create some time to have space with our own networks? If we can, if you can provide us with the information or whatever rubric that you have that you utilize when you're doing other events, if we can have that as well so that we can do that to maximize the reach. And also great to be there with you to provide support, but for us as advisory board members, for us to physically go and work with our networks.
Absolutely. So there's no rubric per se, but there is a PowerPoint that I use where I go over all the different programs that are administered under HOF, and then I provide more information about those and give the survey and explain the connection between the survey and those programs. So if you are thinking of setting up meetings or attending meetings, both are, you know, absolutely great. I'm trying to get into as many meetings as possible. Last month, I totaled I believe 9 different community events of different aspects, which has, you know, contributed a lot to the amount of surveys we've done. So the more spaces we're in, the more eyes on it, the better. So absolutely would love to work with the advisory board to, you know, create more spaces and to be more effective in the spaces that we're already in.
Immediately, I'm thinking about the seniors, our senior residences, our seniors who may not be at any of these events, so we can go to them. So if we can figure out a way to do that, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
A question of clarity. These aren't like community events. These are more or less things happening outdoors where you're handing out surveys, or is this like an actual place where people are coming to kind of hear a presentation?
So they're all different. So for the PHDC, people are going to be there anyways for the mobile Mexican consulate. That's for things like renewing their passport and different things like that. But they're creating a space for us so that we can table while they're there, because people have to wait usually 1, 2, 3 hours to get into the door because they can only see so many people at once. And while they're waiting, we provide them with materials and the survey. So we give them some extra information while they're already there. Where the Troy Hill Citizens, that is a CDC, so they have probably some of their own agenda items, but I go and I give a presentation. I stand up in front of them and I talk for 10, 15 minutes about our different programs and about the survey. And then there's, you know, the farmers market and the city and the streets are more that open air, handing out surveys, talking about what we have to offer to the people. So community events kind of a catch-all term, but each one is a little bit different.
Do we have a goal for the number of surveys we want to get back?
Yeah, so we don't have anything too specific, but last year we got around 650, so we're hoping for at least about that number. And right now we're on track to do so.
Competitive, don't tell me that. 650?
That's what I've been shooting for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're
about to
actually
bump that.
1,000.
that's what I want to do.
Community, we get listen.
Because right now we are just on pace to break that.
Yeah.
Let's shatter that record.
So yeah, I would love to break that record.
50. I mean, good job, guys. But however, right.
Nico, let's put it this
way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have a little healthy competition amongst.
Yeah.
No, I'm just playing. No, let me stop. Okay. First meeting. I want to come back tomorrow. So okay, let me be quiet. Healthy competition.
I'm okay coming in second in the health competition.
Well, that's great. Thank you all so much for your help so far and for your continuing help going forward.
So yeah, I think I can be at the one on this weekend, but I can't the other. So if I can just get some more information. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to be attending the one on the 8th. That's sort of the larger session. It's going to be longer. It's from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. If you want to coordinate with me specifically after the meeting, I'd be happy to. Yeah, the 9th is a bit of a smaller session that I won't be attending personally, but
we'll have other staff.
Yeah, we will have other staff there. And yeah, regardless, should be a good place to be. And we'd be happy to have you on either day for any amount of time. So thank you.
Challenge accepted.
I'm like, oh, these dates. Okay. I will host. I'm willing to host something at the Hill Library.
That'd be great.
The library is free, and I'll put something together. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
The seniors and yeah, so I'll definitely Great.
So that actually speaks to something that we don't often talk about in these meetings. We each are in different spheres of influence. We each have different organizations. We live in different neighborhoods. We have different abilities to support different kinds of events. So I think it would be wise of us as we go forward talking about these opportunities to really think about how we can do those things together. It may be the case that at my particular organization at this moment, there really isn't a huge audience to appeal to, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't do something like support food for someone else's event or market or do something specific that is helpful to that particular community to make the event more robust. Yeah. You know, so I think that that's one of those things that it would be really nice if we had some planning sessions on. Mm-hmm. What do we really do on the ground as members, and how can we support each other to really make these efforts, you know, much more fantastic? Not that they're not already fantastic, but
expanding the reach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we can always do more if we push our resources together. So I think it would be, you know, for each one of these opportunities that we have to engage folks in public events or setting our own events, I think we really should try to do a little bit more of this dialogue about how we can support each other to make those events just much more robust. So don't forget to ask us about that as we're going forward. In any of these events, if there are places where we could plug in to make them just better events, or to support you because maybe you don't have the manpower for those specific dates. I mean, I think that's important for us to start becoming more personally engaged.
What's the timeline to collect input? Like, is there, I know there is, but what's the deadline to?
July 31st is the last day for the survey itself being open, and then we go to review everything that we've received after that. So it's a 3-month survey period. We're just over a month in.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is going to be my item. Again, I'm Derek Kendall Morris, for those online who maybe are joining us. Manager of consumer lending within the URA's residential consumer lending department. So today, coming to you with a voting item. You know, we'd like to enter into an agreement with Action Housing to be the coordinator and administrator for the housing stabilization program. You know, using the 2024 allocation for that program, and you know, if that goes well, and then, you know, moving forward. So for some context, for those who are new or if you need a refresher, currently for the HSP program, we contract with the county's Department of Human Services, and then they have subcontracted with Action Housing to run the program. Because Action Housing actually is the seat of what is now called ASK, which is the Allegheny Housing Stabilization Collaborative. So, you know, over the last few years, you know, we've sort of combined all of the rental assistance resources across the county into what's called ASK, into this collaborative, so that there's a one-stop shop. There's one place where people can go apply for rental assistance, and if they qualify for federal funding the county has, great. If they qualify for HSP that we offer through the city, great. But they go to that one place to obtain that resource if that's what they need. So that's how we have been operating the program since March of last year. But with that relationship, both DHS and Action Housing currently both take a 10% administrative fee out of, you know, the annual allocation for the program that we provide, you know, out of the Housing Opportunity Fund. So for this year, we'd like to sort of cut out some of that administrative red tape and preserve more of that funding so that it can be available directly to clients who are applying for the resource. So we'd like to contract with Action Housing directly. You know, when we've had conversations with DHS, you know, we'll be able to use the same database that we're already using. Nothing will change from the client perspective. There will just be less funding that's going towards administrative overhead when we do that. You know, our relationship with Action Housing is really strong, you know, and since they've been sort of really the staff on the ground operating HSP, you know, from March of 2023, you know, we've served 306 households through HSP, you know, and of those 306 households, 76% were Black households. So we really are, you know, reaching the residents of the city that we want to reach. And, you know, Action has done a great job coordinating the program. So that would be our recommendation as we contract directly with them, but we would love to, you know, answer any questions that you all have about that today. And we'd like to have a vote, you know, of your approval of that before we move forward and entering into a new contract, with Action Housing directly. We do have Natalie Ryan from Action Housing. She's online today. So if anybody has any questions about how the program is running currently or how the collaborative works, Natalie certainly here and welcome to help us answer those. But I would open it up to the advisory board. Does anyone have any questions about this?
Yeah, Derek, I would just ask maybe if you can illuminate a little more on some of the terms of this engagement. So do you have a dollar amount? I think I heard you earlier say, it's going to be a year-long contract, a dollar amount, and then, maybe just have some general, like if you have any thoughts or insight about, is there going to be any change in capacity or on the sort of consumer side of things? Are there any expected administrative changes that may impact someone when they're going to use the services?
Yeah, great questions. So the contract amount that we're discussing would be, for $850,000, which is the allocation for this program for 2020. That would be the contract amount. Action would have, a 10% administrative fee that they would take out of that $850,000 for their services, running the program. In the short term, in terms of operations, nothing would change because, Action Housing essentially is already running the program. We would just be taking DHS out of the loop. But, I will say, in talking to Action Housing over the last few months, the number of eviction filings and, applications that, we are seeing overall for rental assistance is extremely high right now. And the federal sources that have been slowly depleting, for rental assistance that the county has had access to, those are starting to reach sort of the end of their life. Those funding sources are disappearing. So as we go through the rest of this year, we go into 2025, HSP is going to see an increase in demand, where it already is highly in demand because it's the only city focused source. But that's going to increase in terms of how many people are trying to access HSP. So, I would say that we're going to leave the door open to tweaking the program in different ways as we go through the rest of this year, just to respond to that situation. We may be in a position where we need to dial in the focus of the program and just focus on the most extreme cases of need, or there may be some things that we're going to have to adjust just so that we don't spend the entire funding in a month, and we have resources available for people. So initially, I don't anticipate there being any changes in how this operates and how people can access it. But we're going to have to see, what the rest of this year looks like. And as some of the other resources disappear, do we need to respond in any certain way with our program and how we're operating it? But we would work with Action Housing and the advisory board to daylight those things and come up with guideline changes or procedure changes that we think are necessary.
What would be the anticipated effective date of the contract?
So it was effective. We're looking at executing this and having it be effective for July. Okay. If we get approval today, then we would take this to the URA board meeting, which is scheduled for next Thursday, and then we would execute the contract and be ready to go, in July.
With 85,000 more developers sort of in the mix for direct client assistance as opposed to administration.
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
Is there a breakdown as to the types of services that HSP is going to start off with in July? So is it, I heard you say eviction prevention. What about renters who are needing to move and they need assistance? So is that a part of what July would be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those
in July, they would, people would still be able to apply if they need help with first month's rent and security deposit, if they have had to move. Especially since HSP has been closed and they didn't have access to it. If they got evicted, they could apply, in July for that. Again, I don't want to say that that's going to be always something that we're able to do, yeah, we're going to have to be flexible with the program and how we operate it. But yes, starting in July, that is, first month's rent security deposit, yes. If you are behind on your rent, facing an eviction, and you need rental assistance to help you get back on track, HSP is a source that can be used for that as well.
And we do have to keep in mind, so 2024 funds, depending on what is determined today, may be contracted for July, but we're also going to be talking about the reallocation plan back to back with that. So if there are significant program changes that need to be made, we can bring that to the foreground in that conversation.
Absolutely.
To make sure that how the program is used forward is responsive to any kind of trends or changes that we're seeing.
So I have a kind of consumer side question.
Sure.
I know early on there were some challenges with the operational efficiency with the program and people getting served.
Yep.
I haven't really heard much, discussion or dialogue about that. Maybe this is directed to action, but have there been any improvements in the application process, and what's the estimated time for someone kind of coming today to actually be served?
That's a great question, Derek. Thank you for raising that. Natalie, if you're still online, I'd love to see if you have a response to that.
There she is.
We can't hear you, Natalie.
It looks like she's unmuted, but maybe.
Yeah, can't hear you. Sure.
We've been hearing everyone else, so
yeah, we have heard people online. So,
Nothing, Natalie. No.
Read
your lips.
We can hear her online, but it's very faint.
Oh, okay.
It's gotta be something with my speakers. I'm really sorry.
There it is.
Here? Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. I've been having issues with my computer speakers. Thank you for the question. So to answer it, it's a challenging question to answer, and that is because everybody's circumstance is so widely varied, and what we have to offer in ask can combine HSP funds with other funding sources that we have available. So we really have to look at how much rent somebody owes and see how that fits into the puzzle of what we have to offer. Because we're doing housing stabilization truly, we have to make sure that what we're able to pay is actually going to allow the tenant to stay in their housing. And so that's where the challenge comes in determining if somebody comes to us with $9,000 of rental arrears, for example, and we can put $6,000 of that towards some HSP assistance, and there is nothing else available for them because they've already used 18 months of assistance through ERAP and what we call FEP, which is Family Eviction Prevention Program, also federal funding. It's really hard to say how long it takes to process folks because we have to fit them into the puzzle based on what they need. So if somebody came in today and needed, for example, 3 months of assistance, they came to our housing stabilization center downtown, they had all their documentation ready, we can pay somebody within an hour if we had HSP funding and they lived in the city and met eligibility criteria. What becomes challenging is when folks come back to us and have used previous assistance, and then we just have to look at what we have available and try and fit that within the puzzle of what ask can do. So there are so many factors because of the system that we're using that was built during ERAP, which is really amazing. And many of our partners are able to tap into that system. But I know that that probably speaks to some of the challenges that you've heard from folks saying like, oh, this took such a really, really long time. And sometimes it's because we're negotiating repayment agreements with landlords for an additional balance that, the amount that they require is left over. So Do you have any follow-up questions to that? I'm trying to speak to like the wide range of things that happen, and it's really difficult because truly everybody's circumstance is so unique.
I have a follow-up question. If I think I know
Sure.
where you're going, Mr. Tillman. The other piece is the barrier to entry that's concerning because most individuals who are needing these services oftentimes work an hourly wage job. And in order to even apply for the services, they would have to take off work to go to the office to be there during those office hours. And so
They don't have to come to an office. They can call us. We call people. If they call the Allegheny link, their referrals come into our system directly. We email people and make appointments based on their schedule. And we have people that will call during their lunch break, or we have people working until 5. So if somebody gets off at 4, we can call them after that.
So that's what needs to be, because that's not conveyed out in the public, Natalie. I can tell you that right now.
Okay.
And yeah, so, and even working with Allegheny Links, we've had people to call Allegheny Links and they'll tell them no, and they transfer them to the URA, or they'll transfer them to Catapult, or they transfer them to somewhere else. And so that bottleneck, and then what ends up happening is that the name is Action Housing. So your name is getting a bad reputation right now as it relates to the HCSP program. So that's something that we definitely need to update our information, that if for individuals who want to apply, there's multiple ways for them to apply. That needs to be put out there, because right now what's being stated is that the person has to go into your space within these specific hours.
Okay.
Oh, you turned yourself back up again. You keep going down.
I'm sorry. It's my speakers.
Okay.
There you go.
We got you.
Okay. So that's great feedback. I will absolutely take that. Our hotline gets about 4,000 calls a month, and we have 8 people responding to those voicemails as quickly as possible. We have a general email inbox that folks can email if they have a specific time that they need to be called back. I can send all this information to Derek, make sure that he can distribute that to you all so that you can get the word out as much as possible also.
Do you mind saying the email since it's live?
Sure.
And we can have it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's rentalassistance@actionhousing.org.
And follow up. So the email application, is that a new available option?
Sorry, it's not an email application. People can email to let us know that they need a phone call or a good number to reach them. That's what I meant. There's no public application online any longer. And there's no paper application. But if people can't call us, they can always email that email address, and we can respond with different options for times to reach out to us.
Last clarification question. The 18 months that you mentioned connected to ERAP.
Yeah.
So if someone previously received that due to COVID and other impacts, and today, fast forward, lost their job, so it's kind of like a different reason that I need help. Are they not eligible? Can you just clarify that? I just want to make sure I understand.
That's correct. 18 months is a federal guideline that will not change. So if someone has exhausted those 18 months, then there is no other funding available right now to assist.
Got it. But to further clarify, Derek, if they used ERAP, for that 18-month period, and then they lose their job now, they would be able to use HSP. Our program would be available to them, but the federal funding that is also available out there would not be available to that person because they've already used it.
Okay, that's kind of a contradicting answer. So I just want to make sure.
I'm sorry.
Because I'm asking your question, but if they use 18 months of ERAP and now they're coming to HSP, can they get support or not?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes. I'm sorry. I was thinking about today, right now, us not having HSP right now. In July, when the funds are available, yes, absolutely. My apologies.
Yeah. But then HSP, just for everyone's knowledge, if you utilize HSP this year, then you would have to wait a 3-year period before you could use it again. So there is also a similar restriction for our funds, but our restriction is not connected to the federal restriction because this is not federal money. This is local dollars. And we can cover up to 6 months of back rent through HSP that somebody needs.
Hey everybody, this is Tammy. I hope everybody is well.
Oh, hi,
Tammy.
Hi everybody. I'm sorry, I didn't know you didn't know I was on here, but because I came in late and I didn't want to disturb. But I have a question: whether or not Action Housing is working with a subcontractor, or providing any rental counseling associated with access of these funds, or are they just paying rents and hoping for the best, or are there any requirements or offers of rental counseling to help the folks figure out how to get out of this cycle and needing these funds?
Yes, absolutely.
Who is providing the rental counseling?
So we refer folks to the Financial Empowerment Center for budgeting help if they are interested in that. We have a relationship with them. We also have Wave as one of our subcontractors. Wave has financial counseling. They work with folks and their landlords to work out repayment agreements. They have life skills classes. Yep. We absolutely refer to them. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I wanted to make sure because I am very familiar with Wave's work, and they should absolutely be part of this process.
They're amazing.
Okay, yes. Great. Thank you.
Natalie, can you read out the hotline phone number, please?
Sure. It's 412-248-0021.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the email?
Sure. It is rentalassistance@actionhousing.org.
Well, thank you, Natalie, for answering questions. Do we have additional questions that we would like to entertain, or do we have someone that would like to make a motion of contracting directly with Action Housing?
I'd like to move that we contract directly with Action Housing starting July 1st.
Ellie Fisher.
Second
by Derek.
Are there any abstentions on this vote? I do not. So we do have Tanika has abstained from the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. I think that this is an exciting opportunity to have more money on the street in the hands of people who need the rental assistance. So we appreciate the URA always thinking about ways that we can get more dollars into the hands of folks that need them. So thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you all.
So we're about to have a discussion here as the advisory board. So we have been trying to plan a retreat, and we have not gotten the lift on that plan that we would like to have. We've had a lot of changes in our membership. We have appointments that are still sitting open. So we would really like to engage the group as it exists today in a retreat conversation to get us ready for our allocation planning. Allocation planning starts right around the corner. Like it is breathing down our necks at this point. But we would love to figure out a way that we could have time together to really talk through priorities, limitations, concerns, things that we see that are happening in communities that maybe we haven't reflected in our discussions in any kind of way that we want to reflect during our allocation planning process. In order to do that, we have very, very limited time. So I wanted to ask folks today, first and foremost, do you feel that time together like that is valuable? And if so, what do we think we could do to very quickly get ourselves in a place where we could have that conversation?
I agree. It's necessary and it's helpful to be able to do that. And we need to get on our calendars and start scheduling. Yeah, put a couple of days out there.
When do we start the allocation plan?
So what's the absolute latest we can start?
That's a good question.
Survey, right?
Yeah, so the survey closes July 31st. It usually takes us roughly a month to analyze the data, get it to a place where we can then present the results to this body.
Which is typically in the September meeting.
Yeah, usually the September meeting would present the results of the survey. And then we would start immediately using those results to begin to discuss next year's allocation plan. So starting in the September, October meetings, we're hashing that out, because then that allocation plan would need to be approved ideally at the November meeting, so it can then be taken to city council and included in the mayor's budget for next year. So that's the timeline that we're up against, just for context.
So it is tight. So we had originally talked about, we'll do a half day and we'll cater and we'll have it at a nice venue. At this point, I'm not going to lie. I don't care if it's in a nice venue. I don't care if I get fed, but I do think outside of these regularly scheduled meetings where we're doing business, we really do need to sit down. We need to engage with each other. We need to think about what we've been doing. We need to set some priorities in our own minds before we get this allocation process that comes in on us, and we're sort of historically not prepared for everything we would have liked to have talked about before we get to that allocation planning process. So this may be more of we're meeting in some organization's basement. Mm-hmm. There may be some Sam's Club muffins. Yeah.
We don't need a basement. We got a room like this.
I was just waiting for you to offer.
She was like,
How are you?
yeah.
That's why my gaze turns.
Yeah, I love it. Like, yeah.
What do you think, Paul? So we could use that. I think that I like your point around let's look at the calendar right now real quick and see what we can get on, maybe for 90 minutes. And I think if we had a pretty focused, I think there's two things we could do maybe before that. One is if we all kind of tried to contribute to a document that helped us focus. Mm-hmm. I think that focus might be answering these questions and then trying to figure out how to streamline it from that, using that time to really stream. The questions would be, who do we want to be and who do we want to serve? And these are not the end all be all. This is just a place to start. What type of people should be on this board? So that helps us as we're thinking about moving forward, like who's going to be valuable in moving this work along. What's the impact that we desire? Once we understand those things, where can we trim? Which is going to be the tough part, I think. So it might be saying, hey, we know that we have these 7 buckets right now, but we might need to move down to 6 to be more effective with these dollars that we're using. And then the last question was really, how can this group be a value add to the community? And so answering that, I think if we started that in a document form where people might be contributing a point or two in each of these buckets, then when we come in, it's kind of already like, it's not that we have a little bit of direction and we kind of know that, hey, part of this is we can't be as broad as we've been. We have to focus our efforts a little bit. We have to say no to some people to have more impact, and it's going to hurt and be uncomfortable. But I think that's what a board is supposed to do. And we're, I think, taking in leadership that way. And it would be a great way to get a little bit of feedback from some of the folks that are transitioning before they go, if they are jotting in a couple of points.
As I turn my focus.
I was quiet because I didn't think.
I know, you're taking notes, you're pretending.
No, she's very clear when she said the people who are here today.
I did.
I picked up what you were throwing down. Yeah.
Mark Masterson.
Yeah.
So just picking folks' brains, but that's not an end all be all list, but I think what it does is it's really about who we are and who we're going to be. And I think that's both we've talked about the people. Not everyone is meant to be on this board, and that's okay. But who do we want so that we can start having a pipeline of great folks in the community who are good? Like when you start talking about resources and things that are in your neighborhood that you could pull and just go and have this, that's a really good thing that for that to come up in conversation, like what types of resources might be here that just live real time, we could say, you know what, this came up. Let's also now put something to action around. So what does our focus look like? I think our original idea for the retreat was there are elements of focus and there's a little bit of element of like hopefulness, like trying to re-engage in a different way. And I think let's trim it, right? Like we don't need to have everybody on this group. Let's have the folks that need to be here and understand what the board's role and purpose is, so that we're able to meet with the URA's team and say, let's get down to business and the community knows what we're doing.
And I would also add to that, not necessarily to pigeonhole us or limit our creativity or ambition, but to have everyone do a review of like the enabling legislation and what is really spelled out as what our key focus should be, knowing that the need of this city necessitates that we find ways to do that and more, right? But I think it's a great way to have some initial grounding just to revisit those baseline documents.
And I think to your point, you know, the and more, you know, where is the next layer of this? Because the board is the board and the board isn't going to be 700 people, but there could be 700 people in these conversations. And I think we limit ourselves with the insular nature sometimes that we've gotten into. And I would love for us in that time when we talk about who we want to be, I think we can be a convener. I think we can be a collaborator. I think we can be a supporter. I think we can be innovators. I think we can be all of those things. So the dollars are one part of this conversation, but they're not the conversation. So if we can get ourselves out of that mindset to blow up a little bit bigger, as you're talking about, I think that's going to be really impactful and valuable for everyone, and also give us a new ability to really engage the community. If everyone remembers the history, the Housing Justice Table was formed in reaction to the HOF. And really is that push point to make sure that the HOF was holding up the legislation. And when Celeste left our conversation, we really have had this incredibly flat conversation. So we not only want to get this retreat scheduled, but we also want to start bringing a friend, which is the other item on this slide. There is no reason that partners, collaborators, organizations that we work with, innovators, architects who have new vision, there is no reason why these meetings could not be more engaged, could not be more inspired. So we want to also start in conjunction with getting a retreat planned, get ourselves starting to bring a friend. Who are people in communities that should hear what we're talking about, that should tell us what we should be talking about, who should be holding us accountable for what we're doing? You know, we need that energy, enthusiasm, expertise, and it's not going to happen from a 15-person board ever. So keep that in the backs of our minds as we're going to take a quick look at our calendar to see if we can pick a retreat day.
When you say bring a friend, are you talking about to board meetings or to the retreat?
For right now, board meetings. Okay. And anytime we get together, I think this is public conversation. This is not owned by us. So it might be a little bit more facilitation that we need to do to have more voices, but there are some incredibly talented facilitators around the table. So I'm not concerned about that piece.
I say, I want to also make a slight recommendation, but there's just, you said something and I thought you were going to go, you said reactive. I think what I'm hearing is this board should be responsive towards what? Like towards what's the thing we're being responsive to? So if everything is lining and we're being responsive towards Oh, I jotted it down somewhere. It'll come back. I think one of the things is we might need to change the format of this meeting a little bit to invite to be welcoming or valuable for the community, right? So one of the things that can be an idea is we have open comments, but maybe that's moved towards the end, and maybe a thing that also happens towards the end after we kind of conduct business is we are tackling a problem together. So there's a prompt. We have 12 meetings a year. What's a prompt that we could just brainstorm around and kick around a topic for 9 minutes? We give it a set amount of time. And so if we are being responsive towards housing insecurity, or like if we put language to what we're being responsive towards, and then we have prompts that are both community-based, prompts that are URA-based, prompts that are government-based. We have folks that come in and speak that when I think about Megan Confer-Hammond, and she has prompts that she's given us, right? Like, yes. We take one of those prompts, talk about it for 9 minutes, try to come up with a solution, or at least move closer to being responsive in these spaces. And I think so adding space to this meeting so that it is a value add we don't want to invite people to come to just listen to everything. We want them to participate as well.
Absolutely. And I think that we all had hopes that, if we had public comment in the beginning and then we circled back at the end, we would get some more of that. But if people don't know that they should be coming, then it doesn't matter how many times during the meeting we say that we're open to that dialogue. If no one's here, we're never going to have it. So it's the dual responsibility of us to make the space, but also us to let people know that they're invited, encourage that invitation, and reinforce it when people come. Because if they come and it's a whole lot of nothing, we give them 30 seconds and then we're done. It's not going to help us either. It certainly doesn't promote the kind of atmosphere that I think we would like to have.
Can I, just as a place to start, propose either the last week of June or the second week of July? Maybe we're looking in the afternoon. The mornings probably we got busy.
So everyone pull your calendars. Last week of June, second week of July.
Second week of July is when we just scheduled the next meeting.
Yes.
It is.
Which doesn't preclude it at all.
Which technically, we don't have to meet as the HOF advisory. We have plenty of meetings that we conduct per year. If we felt strongly about taking that date and time and converting it to a retreat conversation, we could absolutely do that.
Sure.
Do you predict there'll be any actions we take?
Yeah, Derek, anything coming down the pipeline that's going to mess up?
It's a great question. Not that I'm aware of today. Though usually things don't bubble up right now. I think
the other thing I would say, usually we try to have these meetings so that if there are actions that we need to take, those actions allow the URA board then to take their action. And with the likelihood that the URA will not be having a full
July meeting,
then that July date may in fact just be a very natural opportunity for us to take advantage of and do it, have a retreat.
And if we did have a specific business item, we could add it to the retreat agenda.
Yeah,
right?
I think this we just quickly scheduled.
Yeah.
Great job. Great job, everybody.
Let's still have a meeting, but let's plan for that open meeting to only be 20 minutes, just in case we need to cover anything. If we don't, then we vote in, we vote out.
Yep.
We vote it, cover the minutes and then move right into.
So if we keep 2 to 4, that gives us 20 minutes for a business meeting, and that gives us an hour and a half for the retreat. Everybody,
look at what we just did.
Hey.
Everybody feel good about that? I feel really good about it.
Can I add an agenda item? Look, I'm
course.
fundraising, just the fundraising piece.
Amen.
Because that's huge, and the state of HOF is kind of like in a balance right now. Just wondering what's happening with the funding. And I'm just thinking back to years ago when Bettina left the URA. That was one of the things she was talking about. She was like, we need to come up with a fundraising strategy. Stacked. And so just thinking through we can plan about who we are, what we want to be. We have no money to do any of it. And it's a possibility. that because just the way, and it's all public, you know, the city's budget right now is a little concerning. And so we need to be really thoughtful about where the money is going to come from to do this work. Well, hey, for us to talk about, we identify all these ills and all these problems and everything that we can address. And then it's like, okay, so how are you going to make it happen? So like that, I just don't want to. You, Eric.
Is there allocation expiring?
No,
Talk
I mean,
about
we
more
have
funding, right?
Yeah, more funding,
Yeah.
but also there's, just even if there's a possibility, if there's, if the city decides to pull some money back. I'm just thinking, you know, just because of, I mean, I grew up poor, right? So I know what it's like. And you rob Peter to pay Paul to make things happen. And right now the city is poor. City lives in Garfield Heights housing project like I grew up. And so in order for them to make their rent, they have to rob Peter to pay Paul. I'm just, you know, right? Yeah. I'm just being honest, like that's what it is. So that's what I bring to this group, my poverty, right? So I want to, you know, so just thinking about when you're in those situations, you begin to come up with creative ways to make budget. I'm not saying that they'll pull off, but that could be something. They may pull some money. So we just need to be proactive about our approach in planning as we're planning, but also thinking about dollars that we can bring in as well.
When I think also the leverage conversation, which we've tried to have as carefully and as cautiously as we could have, but what dollars are we leaving on the table because we're not leveraging things in the best way that we could. And sometimes that means one entity gives up a little bit of money, so all the entities get a little bit more money. And those are places where advocacy is incredibly important. And those are the kinds of things that we can do as a group that we haven't been doing. So how do we leverage thought leadership? How do we leverage advocacy? How do we leverage our relationships? How do we leverage a more global conversation? All of those pieces, things that we could do. And I think we want to do, but we have to be intentional about getting to a place where we can do. Well, this was awesome. This awesome 7 minutes. On July 11th, I'll talk to Dr. Spradley about whether or not this space might be available.
Yeah, and I don't mean to just add to this. I'm one who, because of where I work, I normally call into these meetings, but I think like this meeting feels like one that I would definitely want to prioritize being in person. So like the rest of us that oftentimes have to call in, I think it'd be cool to try to make this one in person.
Yeah,
so
we don't want people to call in.
Yes, just agreed. I'm just saying it out loud.
And I did hear a rumor from the URA in prior years that if transportation costs are a barrier for folks, that we can apply for support for transportation costs. So if anyone does feel that transportation costs might be a barrier, it is downtown and it is parking during the day. So if anyone feels that that might be a barrier, please reach out. And we can talk about how we could resolve those issues that might be there. And I think also we can carpool. Yes. So if folks would like to get a ride from, you know, their neighborhood or from their office, also, I think we could circulate that and find ways to make sure that people can get where they need to be in a, you know, cost-effective and comfortable fashion. I'll be coming from the north side that day. So if anybody needs a ride from the north side, just let me know. I would be happy to bring you. But these are the kind of things that, you know, it makes me super excited when we're talking about, because if you think about the first 2 years of these meetings, we weren't talking to each other at all. So if we can keep talking to each other, I think that's going to be really impactful, not only for us individually, but also as a community. So I'm looking forward to just having more conversations with our colleagues about this work. So you'll be getting bombarded with some information about July 11th. And we will make sure to get a notice out to the public that we will not be convening as the advisory board in our regular meeting format. So if anyone who would traditionally be coming, if we let them know individually and as a group that that meeting will not be happening as a public meeting.
So it looks like it's available. I'm gonna book this room and the space out there if in case we needed to, wanted to go like lounge, we could.
Thank you. Adrian, it's Kiana. Can I provide a quick clarification on the allocation plan timing?
Sure.
Thank you. I just reviewed the legislation. It looks like we need to have a draft allocation plan ready for public comment by the end of August. And then beyond that, the final allocation plan should be delivered to the city in October. So we should have a draft available for public comment in August. We should make the final vote on the plan in September. We should deliver that plan or October, deliver the plan to council by the end of October, and they should vote on it by the end of December.
That really doesn't leave any time for incorporating the survey results into the allocation plan.
Yeah, so Kiana, that is why I'd asked that question about how late we can push it out, because I think we were pushing the draft plan out to the community later than that.
Yeah, I think we could probably build some leniency in here, as long as, I think the goal is to kind of have this a council vote for the final plan by the end of the year. I just wanted to just make a clarification on what the legislation says. So I know in the past it's taken longer and it's been okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yep. That's true.
All right. Moving along on the agenda. This is a good day. I'm super excited.
Are there any committee updates? I don't know. It seems like we do.
So who's going to chair your committee? So just a quick second before we move on from that. So Derek was actually the chair of the DEI committee. So
That's a good question, Sanika. Any thoughts?
Dribble.
So I'm thinking, as I'm thinking through this, I'm open to it. Would you be willing to meet with me to discuss where? Okay, absolutely.
So let the record show that Derek is willing to provide mentorship to a new chair of the DEI committee. And we have some folks with interest, so that will definitely be something that we'll want to verify when we're together the next time.
I wouldn't quite call it mentorship. I would call it seamless transition.
All right, I'll take it.
Like mentorship means longer.
Right. Somehow I'm coming to the next meeting. Somehow mentoring for a year. I'm like, am I still on?
Mentor term.
We're trying to be subtle here, but
that was great. That wording was amazing.
Dr. Spradley, did the outreach committee meet?
No updates. Right. Moving on to the programmatic expenditure. This is our expenditure from May. You can see that was the last of the housing stabilization money. Like we were talking about earlier, that program is currently out of funding. This program, because we get the information from Action Housing, reports a month afterwards. So that is actually the month prior to May, where that money was spent. So we're reporting that now. And then, yeah, not too much going on. The small landlord fund did have some money go out the door, which is exciting. And obviously the homeowner assistance program is doing its thing, and used up most of the money that we put out in the last month.
Good question.
Sure.
Is that dollars that were approved last year? Because I thought the homeowner assistance program was closed.
So it is closed for applications, but the actual process of putting the money out the door and doing the actual projects take all of the rest of the time. So that's all from last year primarily, but possibly even the year before in certain cases. So that's us getting caught up to speed. So that's a good sign. Does mean that hopefully we will be able to open it again, sooner rather than later for applications, because we are getting projects done.
And I think one of the things that's created confusion ongoing for the membership is which contracts are spending out last year, which contracts are spending out current year. And then we'll have another allocation plan on top of that. So I think sometimes we're going to have more questions because it's unclear which year we're in. So that might be just something that we want to think about, how we're talking about the information when we've had the hard spend down date for each year. For each fund might be something that's helpful. Does that make sense?
I mean, for example, like this leads me wondering, well, how much is left from previous years? Do we have that information?
And things do push. Some funds spend a lot faster than other funds. So some funds are still in 2023, some funds are in 2024. I think that can sometimes be, hard to just get your brain around.
Yeah. So we do have that information, not prepared today. Obviously,
no.
Yeah, but we can, perhaps as a part of the retreat, maybe that's information we can tell.
On the slide before I move to the year. All right, so this is our expenditures for 2024 so far. As we can see, the housing stabilization, HSP has put quite a lot of money out. Rental gap, despite not doing anything in the last month, having any expenditure, I should say, in the last month, is still the program that's used the most funding this year. And then the homeowners assistance has gotten quite a lot of money out the door. And, we can see for the small landlord fund, with last month, basically just a little bit has gone out. So far, it's definitely our smallest, and for sale development has been not the most utilized this year so far, but for sale development in the past has been very boom or bust. When it's going, it's taking up a lot of money and doing quite a lot with it, and it just hasn't happened so far this year.
So is this cash out the door this calendar year and includes funds from other, okay.
Correct.
It's only from HOF funding though. Some of these programs do full funding from other sources. This is purely housing opportunity fund money.
Right. Yeah. The other thing to always note, which I think we all are aware of, but just to verbalize it every now and again, this is cash out the door, but that doesn't mean staff is in communication with 12 different developers for sale projects. So, the money just hasn't gone out the door.
Right.
So there's a lot that's happening that doesn't necessarily show up on the graph.
So it doesn't include commitments either.
Right. This is not commitments. This is money out the door.
Why did you ask that question?
For example, I've been approved, it's actually not HOF dollars, but for a loan for a project. I have not drawn on that loan, but it's been approved, right? And it was approved in this calendar year for that program. So in some accounting measures that would show as spent because it was approved. It hasn't gone out the door as dollars. I don't have it in hand yet.
So I think it's a good question. I was wondering if you're also, I don't want to, are you also asking something? Is there a better way that we might show this? Is that kind of why you asked?
Well, this is my first meeting, so I'm learning what's being shown, and then I'll decide what I think about it as I learn all the different information, right?
Well, even to her point, even if we just add what this is, committed versus, these, just a caveat that says these items shown here are committed funds that have been released or does not reflect additional, the committed funds for this year. So even if it's just that, then that could
and that's
some of the question.
Well, and I think I appreciate the clarity. I didn't want to jump ahead of where you were at. And so I think that clarity is if we're gonna be inviting people into this anyway, I think that helps us focus our clarity to be able to understand a more accurate understanding of this number, so that we're planning accordingly, but also the folks that might be joining might say, okay, so there's some things that are planned. This bucket is like, they use this bucket very quickly, and it's helping people, it's helping to tell a story
Well, and I think that once we have a retreat with like what our goals are, then we make sure that these reports that we're getting are answering those goals for us. So that we know, like,
Yes.
I don't know what this means to me yet, right? But like, once I'm up to speed and know what the goals are, I expect this to tell me, oh yeah, we're well on our way, like, but maybe it doesn't, right? Like, I don't know what the full rental gap approval is for the year.
I was about to say that, yeah.
And that's something
That's
I mentioned in the previous meeting, was making sure that we also, I know that this funding can account for different years of funding for each of these line items. But if there's a way that, and maybe it doesn't need to be on a PowerPoint or something, maybe there's some sort of brief supplemental thing that we can look at so that we're understanding, 116,000 down payment cost has gone out, and that's, hypothetically speaking, that's all from the 2023 allocation, which was, hypothetically speaking, $300,000, right? So that like we can have a general sense of what's available moving forward, and
Yeah.
it is.
I could,
Madam Chair.
not.
Yeah, that's a document that we actually get during the allocation planning.
Okay.
That we could look at that same format.
I think we can
ongoing, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's no
I
reason-
couldn't. Sorry, Derek. I couldn't agree more with the direction of this conversation. Like, I think it is a great. I have often sort of found myself in conversations about a particular project, or a bigger picture thing, wanting to know the answer to essentially the question, how much is left? Like some version of the question, how much is left? Broken up by our various programs. And I know that the answer to that is complicated by allocation years, actual spend down, and other things. But so I think I love the direction of this conversation. The staff is definitely going to need us to be clear with them about what we want. But I think it's something we should maybe spend some time on at the retreat.
And you get the added bonus of having me. I know that's stuff.
Well, I was about to
This
say,
for the URA
yeah.
different departments. So
That's what I was saying, Madam Chair, and this is the wheelhouse. That's right. This is,
so
He does that in his sleep.
Yeah, I'll just say, like, all the data points that you're all discussing are definitely things that we've provided in the past, and we can do so again. So yeah, I think having some conversations about what you all want to see regularly, and then we can put that together. That's not a problem. Over time we reached this. If this isn't working, then we can absolutely adjust it. So yeah, look forward to the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie, for kind of starting this, asking that question.
You're welcome.
Any more questions on this?
Yeah.
Done.
It's
You get trouble, all right.
And this would be July 11th, but it's not happening. So are there items that we missed today that we should spend some time on, or comments from any of the folks that have joined us today?
I think it's great to see you two here. Have some folks in.
It'll be nice to see Derek at the retreat.
And the mentor.
Are there people that are being considered to be on the board that are not quite all the way along that we want to invite to the retreat?
Yeah. I don't today know the answer to that question.
We don't really get that communication from the mayor's office.
We could inquire. We could inquire.
Because it would be really powerful to have those people.
Well, we've talked about the idea of having more influence with the mayor and saying,
Absolutely.
hey, I know that you're gonna pick, but we have these 7 people that we'd like you to also consider in this number. They may go with our 7, but from people that are coming in, and folks that are in our network, there might be people who need to be on here more so than others.
Absolutely.
And how do we use our leverage to encourage the mayor to select those people?
And I think at this moment in time, I'm honestly not clear with who they've already potentially made promises to or commitments to. And so, yes, if there's any way for, you know, the URA to find out from the mayor's office, that would be fantastic. It's hard to say we think that this would be a great addition to the board if those seats are already taken. And I think that that's how it's felt. So it's not been, we've been able to be proactive about filling a seat. It's been, you know, the reverse. So if there is any opportunity for that, I think it would be fantastic.
Well, we could ask the mayor's office too, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can't we just ask the mayor's office?
We absolutely can.
Yeah.
And maybe better from us versus the staff.
If each individual HOF advisory board member would like to reach out to the mayor's office and ask about their plans, that feels maybe that it wouldn't be as concentrated as we might like it to be.
Gotta be a way to get 15 minutes just to talk.
That's what I'm thinking. You know, is there another mechanism by which, you know, do we need to have a resolution today that we would like to have regular encounters with the mayor's office related to membership on this board? I know that there's calls out right now for all kinds of boards and appointments. And I'm not sure how that ties back to us.
Well, I mean, so Kiana, as a chief housing officer for the URA, the URA meets with the mayor's office weekly. And so even like she's not there every week, but she could be the person taking it. Kiana, so I'm just saying, but hey, but I mean, Kiana could, you know, essentially she could be the one because they meet weekly. So why not have that? So it's not another meeting being scheduled, and just to ask that question.
Well, and I thought that's where we started, was the URA would ask from the mayor's office because they've been the conduit, but then the suggestion was we as board members ask the question. It could be a combination of both.
Yeah, can the URA make the ask for us to come in and share some of Kiana's time 1 week? We can get it done in 6.5 minutes.
What do you think, Kiana?
I think Kiana's making cinnamon toast.
I'm trying to get off mute. So, yeah, I can absolutely attempt to get some time from folks at the mayor's office with the advisory board just to talk about these things. Absolutely. Between now and the retreat.
I love it.
I mean, even like
Thank you.
being considered, I think would be, and we invite them to this.
Yeah, and if they say no, they don't have a list yet. We're like,
and we could,
Yeah,
we could do that as well.
Citizen is that if you have recommendations, you should be putting it together and sending it along.
Yeah.
And people can apply right now. I mean, those appointment opportunities are available. There's a link, you can apply. I don't know if people are applying because we've just never had access to how that is happening. But if we can get that conversation started of how can we have an active engagement into board membership.
I have applied, you know, generally to be considered for boards and things like that, and have received some communication from the mayor's office and like whoever's running that process. So, you know, I think it's still open. So
I think it is too.
That is a part of like this current ask that they have out.
I did it at the beginning of the term when they did the first solicitation.
When he first started.
Well, they just did a second round of outreach to organizations this last week, I think. So yes.
Yeah. I mean, I reached out to the mayor's office last fall, or maybe through the URA, I don't know, about this, and didn't hear until like March or something, you know? So I think things are just slow. Maybe there wasn't an opening. I think there wasn't an opening.
We have a variety of openings right now. We definitely have.
And I would, to James' point, I would recommend folks kind of put your list together, like as a group, as a board, but just know which areas are open. You know what
exactly.
I mean? So kind of Yeah, that's a key component.
So could we go back to the roll call slide?
Yep, let's say we have that.
Because that is the rub. It's what's open at this point. So obviously the mayor's office is open.
Yep, that's okay.
And Dr. Bay has resigned.
Yes,
We know that to be
open.
the case. So that's not neighborhood-based nonprofit community resident from the South. And we have Derek's opening, which actually isn't even showing right now, is it?
Yeah, for profit.
Oh, development community, sorry. And then we have neighborhood-based nonprofit or community resident from the West. So we have a nice wide.
So does the mayor's office would need to be somebody who works in that office?
Yes, yeah. And I would say it's not showing as vacant here. We'll have to verify the mayor's office, but I do believe the tenant representative spot is also available.
Yes, I believe that is also accurate.
Yeah.
And I did just get my reappointment letter. I don't know if, I know Lena also got hers. So I think we also don't know if anyone wasn't reappointed or isn't going to be reappointed.
Right.
We have no sense of that.
Yeah, we know.
What if I got fired from this?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so maybe I'm not on this board anymore. That'd be weird.
Well, I was about to say the same thing. I am a little confused as well because I haven't received any information about whether I'm on this board or not either.
So I think we all are in agreement that we want to have this dialogue started directly between the advisory and the mayor's office so we can start to tackle some of this lack of clarity, the lag time between vacancies, how folks are appointed, skill sets that we may desperately feel that we need that maybe the mayor's office isn't thinking about. So if Kiana can be our champion to just get the conversation started, for folks who feel strongly about maybe missing voices or specific individuals on this board, we all have each other's email. Let's share that list.
It's a document that we said we're going to try to send out before we meet that has a couple of ideas and things. Maybe we could also just look for a couple of names.
Yep, absolutely. Recommendations for the board. So I apologize to everyone. I feel like today was the best meeting, but it was much more casual. I hope that wasn't something that felt uncomfortable for folks. I like the fact that we were just dialoguing a little bit more free-form today than we normally do. But if that feels like it's not a good approach, please share that concern.
I agree. I actually enjoyed this meeting today. So I agree.
And I also agree that this format was a lot more, easy. It was easy, but it was significant. And I think the the retreat being in person is a good suggestion and a recommendation.
Thanks, Karen.
And I agree. Yeah.
Well, onward we go, soldiers.
Ellie, it was you and I.
Just changed the whole tempo.
Yes.
Everything changed. Well, with that being said, everybody's got July 11th on your calendar from 2 to 4 here at Dollar Bank. We're going to be together for some retreat conversations. You're going to get lots of communications from us here in the next week, just outlining some things from today and next steps and what the retreat will look like and any details you need. If there are not other items of business, do we have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Dr. Spradley.
Second.
Thank you, Ellie. We are officially adjourned. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to our future conversations.